are 2 strategies for making life-changing wealth as an event professional. Now, I know that money is not everything, of course, but I've been well off and I've been broke. And let me tell you, broke sucks. And I also understand that life-changing wealth can mean different things to different people. But having enough money to live your goals and to achieve your dreams and all that good stuff can be very liberating, and it can also lead to a much more fulfilling life. Welcome to the Event Secrets Podcast, where we talk about how to throw better events, take better care of our clients, and make a whole lot more money in the process. This is an all-action, no fluff podcast full of actionable insights that you can follow as an event professional. In my last episode, I talked about how I took my itty-bitty event decorating side hustle from here to clear up here into a multi-million-dollar events company, and the lessons that I had to learn along the way to get there. During my more than 1 decade as an event professional, I've experienced a lot. I lived many years surviving on less than $25,000 in absolute poverty, eating spaghetti and quesadillas every day for food. That sucked. That was no fun. To a point that my life was changed when I finally figured out how to build some systems and how to get the word out about what I could do. And that allowed me to take home between $100,000 to $120,000 per year. And that was better in its own way, but stressful in others. And then to the point that the business really started to grow and my income has gone up significantly. Matter of fact, this year I'll end up making about 3 times what I've ever made in past years, which is pretty exciting. Now, I wish I could stand here and tell you that this entire thing was sunshine and roses and absolutely amazing, but that'd be a lie. This has been really, really hard. Really painful, especially these early years, right? And that was COVID. That sucked. That was the worst year. But this has all been really hard. These latter years have still been hard, but a lot more enjoyable for a variety of reasons. But it's from this experience that I've been able to learn these 2 life-changing wealth-building strategies as an event professional. So let's talk about what these 2 strategies are. The first one is becoming a rock star. Now, when I say rock star, I obviously am not talking about like musician, right? You can do that too, that's great. But when I say rock star, I'm talking about someone that is world class in what they do. Someone that is at the top of their craft. Whatever specific thing you do related to the event industry, be the best. Because when you're the best, you can charge the best prices, you can work with whatever clients you want, and people will actively seek you out. When you become a rock star, people will be like, hey, we want this thing at the event, but only if this person can do it, right? We will only work with this vendor, only work with this artist, only work with this, decorator, whatever it is. We want this person. And when you are a rock star, you can command very high prices. The other thing you can do is you can work on owning a system and building a system, right? So this is more of the typical like entrepreneur route. This right here, maybe you build a business around it, maybe you don't, maybe it's just you, maybe it's you and some helpers, but this is more of your kind of traditional, let's build a business and grow the system, which will give us the leverage or the ability to multiply our efforts so we can build something awesome. Now, throughout my career, I have actually occupied both of these roles. I've taken both of these paths. In these early days, I was more or less a no-star, but I was really talented at what I was doing. I built incredible balloon art installations, balloon arches, all that good stuff for corporate events and conventions and grand openings, and even some stuff like birthdays and baby showers, things like that. But I was really good at what I did, but no one knew who I was, so I was definitely not a rock star, right? Now, in these years right here, I actually did learn how to get my name out there, and I did have a little bit of notoriety, and I became the rock star, right? Where I was paid pretty well for my craft. I was really, really good at creating balloon installations and balloon arches. I've created some of the coolest balloon art installations in the entire world. They're awesome. This right here was actually one of my favorites. This thing is huge. This is 80 feet long or 80 feet wide, however you want to look at it. This balloon right here, 8 feet tall. I got pretty well known. And clients of all types, a lot of corporate clients, a lot of high-end private clients and celebrities, they'd fly me out. They'd pay me 15 to 20 grand to work for them for the day. I'd build something really awesome. Everyone would ooh and ah, then I'd pop it and go back home. Anyways, so I was learning this rockstar thing. Now, COVID, huge downer, right? But before COVID happened, we were on track to do $400,000 of sales that year, out of which I would have kept about $225,000. So in terms of like quality of life and salary, I was not working a ton. Like I worked really hard when I worked, but during this period, for example, I took 6 months off to rebuild a house. I just bought an old fixer-upper. I was like, I want to do this myself. And so I rebuilt the house. So I had a lot of flexibility. Now, I would work really hard when I had to work, right? A lot of 18-hour days, a lot of traveling and road time and all that stuff. So that kind of sucked. But I was to the point where my name was out there enough that I could make some good money. Now, from this point forward, I stopped being the rock star and I became the owner of a system. The irony is I actually thought I owned a system this whole time. But during the pandemic, I was pretty depressed as I watched everything I'd worked so hard to build come crumbling down. And so I tried to sell Balloon Artisan. I started out, hey, I'll sell this for $100,000, no takers. I'll sell this for $50,000, no takers. Finally, I started approaching specific buyers and stuff, and people were like, dude, I would not buy that company from you. You haven't built a business, you built a job. That's really where I learned this lesson of rockstar versus system owner. We'll talk about that more in a second. And of course, there's pros and cons to everything you do in life. This was a great period of life. For the most part, this was a great, enjoyable period of life. I worked hard, met some great people, had a lot of fun. This has also been a great period of life. They're just different. So I want to talk about the pros and cons with both the rockstar approach and the system owner approach. Let's start out by talking about the pros of being a rock star. So during this time, I was like a quasi-celebrity. People recognized me. People would see my work on Instagram. They'd be like, oh my gosh, I saw one of your installations in this city, in California or New York or wherever it was. And people would call me specifically looking for me and my talent. That was kind of fun. I was the guy and I liked it, right? It made my ego feel really nice. Another cool thing is most of what I was earning, I was keeping. So this year I generated like $189,000 in revenue, something like that. I kept like 120 of that. So I had much bigger margins. I was keeping a lot more. Also, I didn't have to staff a team. I didn't have any full-time team members. I had some helpers that it's like, hey, I got this project on this date, this time. Do you want to come and help inflate balloons for 12 hours? I'm like, yeah, sure. Here's some money, right? And so I did that. And I had people travel around the country with me that, were pretty good people that knew the craft fairly well from what I had taught them over the years. But I didn't have a full-time team that I was accountable for. And that was kind of nice because I could be the guy focused on the art and the passion and the creativity of things. I could also guarantee the outcome of the project within reason, of course. There's always something goes wrong in the event space. But I knew if I was there and I had all my stuff in one place, that you would get a phenomenal result. It might not be exactly how we planned it. There might be union issues or maybe the ceiling changed or whatever, but it was going to be awesome. And I loved that. I also knew that all my clients were going to be taken care of. And that was something I really enjoyed as well, knowing that there's a super high quality of care associated with my brand. I also got to travel all around the country for free. I got my airfare covered, stayed in some really nice hotels, ate at some amazing restaurants, made some cool connections. That was a huge perk. I also had a lot of flexibility when I had flexibility, of course. So if I wasn't working on a project, I had basically unlimited flexibility. Like I said, I took 6 months off between these years here to buy and rebuild an entire house. That was cool. I learned a lot of things I never thought I'd have a chance to learn. And the last pro that I wanted to talk about is that I had a lot of available cash. Now, one of the important things about being a rock star is when you start making more money, don't spend it all, right? Because every rock star has their day, and the time will likely come when your craft falls out of trend, or when you just get bored or you get injured or you don't want to do it for whatever reason anymore, and you're going to need to take the money that you spent or that you made and use that to propel yourself into the next phase of life, whatever that is, retirement or starting the next business or going back and getting a job, whatever it is. You want to propel yourself forward using the income from your rockstar phase. Now, I was a bit of a dumbass here. I invested in a lot of things during this time, but they were stupid things, and I lost a lot of money day trading stocks and stuff like that. I was a little bit naive and gullible at the time, and that sucks. So don't be a dumbass when you start making money, and don't let your lifestyle expenses creep up to your income. Keep your lifestyle the same. Maybe, add a few other creature comforts that you haven't been able to enjoy, but try to save some of this to give you a little more peace of mind as time goes on. Let's talk about the cons of being a rock star. So the first one is, it's a lot of work. I've had a lot of 80-hour weeks in my journey here. Now, true, I've had some 80-hour weeks here as well, but they look a little bit different. So that's a huge con. Another con is if I stop working, so does my business. No one's out making sales. No one's talking to clients. No one's making money. And that is a hard reality to swallow when you're in that position. So that sucks. I was also constantly feeling burned out as I went through the peaks and valleys of the busy seasons and the slow seasons. And a lot of times what would happen is I'd work myself into the ground on these big projects, and then I'd just be exhausted for a month, and I couldn't even work after that because I was just so burned out, and that was not good. It was really rough for my family and my friends. I actually kind of lost all my friends around here because I was working so much, to be honest with you. But it was really, really rough on my life. I also quickly found out that I could not be in two places at one time. So when I had a client from Florida reach out at the same time as a client from California, I was like, oh crap, which one of these two projects do I take? It was very difficult. Now I could easily handle both at the same time, even at the same day, but back then I couldn't do that. Around here, I had my first kid, and traveling wasn't appealing anymore, so that became really tough. And also, I found out that, if I ever didn't feel like working, or worse, if I got sick, I just had to suck it up and power through it. And that was really, really difficult, especially as an artist. I remember there were days when I had 18-hour builds and I could barely even stand. And I was in so much pain, but it's like, hey, whatever, get up on that scissor lift. We paid you, and that sucked. That was not a lot of fun. I was also super lonely throughout this time because it was just me. I had no one to share in the hard times or the good times with. It was really tough. Not a whole lot of fun. Now, the last con, this is the biggest con about being the rock star. It's that one day you will quit being the rock star. It might be in a year, 20 years, 30 years, whatever it is, but one day you will stop for some reason and you're just going to have to walk away. Because when you're a rock star, you can't just hand the keys of rock stardom to somebody else. You can't just say, hey, I was the guy, this is now the guy. It doesn't work that way. Your clients are going to want you. The relationships that you built are going to want you. They're not going to want to hand things over to this other person. That is the worst part of being a rock star. And that's what I found when I tried to sell my company. And I literally found out, like, the only person that was remotely interested talked about buying it for $10,000, which I had like $16,000 of inventory at the time. So I'm like, wait a second, you're willing to pay less than the cost of inventory for this business that I spent all this time building and all these clients and everything? And they're like, yeah, because then I have to figure out what to do with the inventory. I'm like, oh, shoot. And that sucked. All right, let's talk about systems, right? Owning a system or a business or some sort of licensing program or a training or something like that. Some sort of thing that doesn't require your physical effort that can pay you and make you money. That's what we're talking about when it comes to a system. Now, I want to throw out a quick disclaimer here. I'm not trying to make any sorts of moral judgments when I'm talking about this, right? I know this is a very charged topic. A lot of people are like, oh, they make too much money, or oh, they don't make enough money, or whatever. I just want to talk about the fundamentals and the principles of how systems work. So the basic idea of a system is you build something that costs this much money to start, and over time you get better at doing that. Maybe you hire some people, maybe you get a cooler website, better content, you have a portfolio, you have sales systems, scripts, and all that stuff. And one day this thing is worth this massive amount of money, and when you're ready to ride off into the sunset, you can sell that to someone or hire someone to take it over, and it can keep paying you for years to come, right? That is the basic premise of how to generate wealth by building a system. So Jeff Bezos, for example, once again, I know a lot of people hate Jeff Bezos, a lot of people love him. I'm just trying to approach this from a very pragmatic standpoint. So he started Amazon 25 years ago or whatever it was. Amazon wasn't worth much, probably nothing. Maybe say $1,000, I don't know, however much he put in it to start it. But on day one, it was not worth a whole lot. Fast forward 25 years or whatever it's been, and it's now a $1 trillion company because it has a brand reputation, it has systems, it has cash flow, it has all these different things, just people and warehouses and networks, and it has Amazon Web Services that host websites and half the internet on it. A lot of really, really cool things have been done to take the system from here to here where it's this $1 trillion thing. So if you want to explore the systems route when it comes to being an event professional, this is what you want to focus on, right? So once again, from here to here, there was no system. I was trying to figure everything out, right? From here to here, I had a system. I knew how to get clients. I knew how to build really cool stuff. I was really good at that. Now, I didn't have leverage. I lacked leverage, but I did have a little bit of a system. The problem is without the leverage and without someone to maintain the system, absent of myself, it wasn't worth anything. Now, from here to here, this is where I really learned how to build a system, right? And so the cool thing about a system is you kind of get to double dip in a way. Because from here to here, I made money, right? Just from the excess cash the business produced. Now, in this year, it was not a ton of money. I actually made more as a rock star than I made in this year because I had a lot of front-heavy costs that I had to invest in and that I had to pay for to get things going. From here to here, where we finished up this year, I did quite well. I will end up profiting somewhere in this area, right? So I make more money here as the owner of the system. Now, the cool thing is, yes, I'm making more money, and my work looks very different now than it used to, but also this system is now worth something because it turns out something that throws out this much income to the owner is worth something, and people will buy that from you. So not only did I increase my net worth through this, but I also increased it through the worth of the system and what someone will pay for it. And that's what makes systems so cool when it comes to generating life-changing wealth. So let's move into talking about the pros of owning a system. Now, the first pro I want to talk about is my favorite pro, and that is the inverse of the biggest con of being a rock star. And that's that throughout your career, you're going to work really, really hard on building whatever you're doing, right? But one day, if you own a system that doesn't need you and that produces cash flow, produces net income or profit in the business, somebody will buy that from you. Now, there's a lot of things you can do to make them pay more or less or whatever, but somebody will usually want to buy that from you as long as it's a true, honest system that doesn't need you to run. And that's really cool. So right now at Balloon Artisan, I'm not focused on the next balloon project, right? That's not where my time's spent. I'm focused on how do I get this system to the next milestone so my team has better jobs, they can make more money, and so the system as a whole grows and gets stronger. It needs me less, and one day, so it will be worth more. And maybe in 20 years or however long it is until I'm done with this business, I don't know how long it will be, but one day I want to exit and do the next thing probably. I probably won't ever retire, but that's what's going to happen. Another thing is the system doesn't need you for everything. When it was just me and I was the rock star, I had to be there. If I committed to it, I was there 100% of the time, sick or healthy or death in the family or not, I had to be there. And it was really, really tough. But with a system, you have a little more flexibility. Like if I was sick today, I wouldn't have to work. Or because my team has things taken care of today, I'm able to make this podcast episode, right? This is cool. And this podcast is an important part of our strategic plan at Balloon Artisan. We want to share what we've learned. We want to build a lot of value, network with more event professionals, and hopefully if they like what we do at Balloon Artisan, they'll work with us. And if not, maybe they'll just listen to the podcast and share, and maybe they'll send us a referral every now and then. That's part of why I'm doing this. So I get to focus more on the strategic initiatives of the business rather than just the next event. And that's really cool. One of my favorite pros of owning a system is you can create some amazing jobs for some really cool people. And let me tell you, Balloon Artisan has some of the coolest people I've ever met working on the team. It's really cool to be able to come in each day and to spend my time with these guys. I love it. It's really cool to choose your own coworkers. I highly recommend it. Now, one of the cooler things though is seeing that as the system gets stronger and the business gets healthier, that my team gets more perks from that. They get better bonuses, they get better benefits, they get more vacation time, they get an all-around better job. We have more people that can cover each other. Matter of fact, we have about 100 people working on the Balloon Artisan team in some capacity or another. We're in over 25 states now, so wherever you are, we likely can help you on an event, right? And that makes the system stronger. And one of the coolest things that we've learned over the past year is that we have clients that have events in multiple states. And instead of finding a local vendor for each state, they work with the same contact on the Balloon Artisan team for everything. And they can get the same quality of results, speeds up time and all that stuff, right? So from that has come an increase in sales, which has come an increase in pay to the team, which makes it so they can buy houses and cars and lots of cool things that they weren't able to buy before. Really cool. So as the system grows, everybody grows with. The last pro I want to talk about is when you own a system, you get to focus on bigger, more interesting, and hairier challenges. And this can be intellectually very rewarding. I really like this. It keeps things new all the time. No day is the same. There's always a new challenge to overcome. And when you overcome those challenges, the rewards can be massive. We have some challenges right now at Balloon Artisan that we're working on that could easily double or triple the size of our company in the next 1 to 2 years. And those are very exciting. Now, I wish I could say it was all sunshine and roses, but of course it's not. There are a lot of cons that come from owning a system. The first of which happens to coincide with the last pro that we talked about, and that's that you're working on bigger, harder, and hairier challenges with significantly higher stakes, right? If you solve those challenges, you can make a lot more money. If you fail to solve those challenges, your business could die. And that sucks. And you have to lay people off, and people can lose houses and cars and livelihoods. It's not good, right? So that's a huge con of owning a system. Now it's one that can be overcome, but it is a con nonetheless. Also, you are on call for problems 24/7. My phone is always on. My team can always reach me day or night. Sometimes I have to take calls at 4 in the morning, and that sucks. But alas, it's one of the cons of an otherwise pretty sweet deal. And the other thing that I don't like about owning a system is you really only work on the problems that no one else can solve. Because if someone else could solve them, ideally they would solve them before they came to you. So you get to deal with the shittiest problems that no one else wants to touch and no one knows how to solve. One thing that's really rough about owning a system is it takes a lot longer to get to your destination and to build something substantial. If you took away everything I own right now and you made me start from scratch, I could get back to making 6 figures in probably 4 to 5 months. I know I could do it. Now, the problem is with Balloon Artisan in its current form, if you deleted that and I had to restart, even though I know the process, even though I know how I did it, just rebuilding everything, like retraining the team, hiring everybody, building our tech systems and our scripts and all that stuff, that would take at least a year. At least, probably more than that. And that's with me knowing the roadmap, having walked there before, right? Very expensive, very difficult to do that. And that's kind of a pain. So you have to be a little more patient when it comes to the systems approach, because there's going to be more things you have to overcome to get to where you want to be. Also, there's a lot more paperwork. So let me throw that out there. Also, HR stuff can be an absolute nightmare. next to IT, which I also have to deal with. HR stuff is probably my least enjoyable aspect of my job. I do not like doing it. It's very difficult. It's difficult to figure out how to attract new talent. It's difficult to figure out how to interview people and decide who you should hire and who you shouldn't hire and how much to pay them and how to write the job stuff and all those things. That's very difficult to do. And then you have to keep your team happy and trained and growing. And yeah, that's no walk in the park. But the payoffs, of course, are very good if you can figure out how to do that. So these are the 2 strategies that can help you create life-changing wealth as an event professional. If you found this helpful at all, make sure to like, subscribe, all that stuff, and keep coming back for more. This is the Event Secrets Podcast, where we talk about how to put on better events, take better care of our clients, and how to make a whole lot more money in the process. Also, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn, send me a connection request, shoot me a direct message. I always love meeting new event professionals, and if there's any questions I can answer for you, or if you have any suggestions for future podcast episodes, feel free to let me know. Have an awesome day, and we'll see you next time.